Welcome to Take Life Further at Western, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories, insights, and strategies that empower you to push beyond your limits and live life to the fullest. We're your hosts. I'm Tad Taggart.
And I'm Katie King.
And each month we'll be exploring the journeys of incredible individuals who have dared to dream big, overcome obstacles, and achieve extraordinary success.
So get ready to be inspired,
Motivated,
and equipped to take life further. Welcome back. Good morning to Take Life Further at Western. I'm excited today. Well, I'm kind of just hosting on my own because Tad had a baby.
Yay!
So he is off enjoying the newbie to the family for a little bit. So I'm going to do this one on my own, and Sophie's going to help out where she can and keep us focused.
I'll do my best.
So excited today. We have two guests with us, Mette and Anna. And I'm going to start with Mette. See, I told you I was going to mess this up. Mm-hmm. I always mess up a couple words in the podcast.
Wassinger?
Yeah, there you go, Wassinger.
Is that right?
Oh, Did I do it right?
So in Denmark, where I come from, we say Wassinger.
Wassinger.
So Mette April Wassinger on English. So
Why do we always change things in English?
Well, just different dialects.
I guess so.
yeah.
Well, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here, all the way from Denmark, Copenhagen, or California, where you live some of the time too.
Yes.
But if you could just give us a brief intro of yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really first have to say I'm so appreciative of being here, right now. And so my background is that I'm actually born in Austria, came to Denmark, and have the last 28 years worked as a nerve specialist. I have developed a method that releasing stagnant energy through the nervous system, through the energy of our body. And that started all with a kind of massage method. And then it has developed to being really working with the higher frequency of energy. Because we are energy, we are vibration, we are frequency, we are all made of that. Everything is energy. So I thought, why not go to the intelligence of our natural way of being? And that is this beautiful molding and working with higher vibration. That is what we are. And so my background is actually, I work as a nerve specialist. I am working with I call it precision healing. It's an art of healing. And through that, I support people actually in seeing, because I see colors all the time, I see the stored energy in our system, and have the opportunity to support you by activating your own healing, your own energy. And through that, there are beautiful releasing of patterns that doesn't serve us anymore, we become aware of. And awareness is like everything. Mm-hmm. So, yes. So that is some of me.
The brief, that is the Cliff Notes version. I know, and now we're all relaxed as Mette's talking to us.
It's such a lovely speaking voice.
It is. And then we also have Anna Cat with us, and she is actually our director of Renew, but also has some interesting background in some of the same stuff that Mette does.
Yeah, we have some interesting similarities in that sense, and it's been wonderful just to spend time with you and to be at Western and to see how all those doors just unfolded and opened, and you kind of go back to that. It's been a growth journey, right? And I started very young in the energetic healing, and it's interesting in the path of like how that has transformed and come about to where I am today in very similar ways, with working with that nervous system and working with that calm and having that. I think for me, bringing that woo factor out of what I do for people has been very, very important, and that has really grown here at Western, where I get to blend both of the worlds of having that calm side within that energetic body healing, but then now also propelling that a little bit further to really give some depth and foundation into some of these modalities that we're using, like PEMF and vibration and sound frequency and radio frequency, and you kind of take some of those terms that really aren't understandable but build like this whole wellness plan. And that's where Western has really come together, and it's really neat to be able to talk to you and see how that all unfolds and the journey. So it's a little bit of my background.
Oh, well, we're lucky to have both of you. I think when we talk about all of this stuff, I also want to like bring it down for the listeners, because not everyone is versed in what all this means. But when I first started doing some of the healing, I did it for my nervous system, right? Suffering from multiple sclerosis, like just having anxiety, having ADHD. I had to learn how to find balance within myself, and I'm not always able to do that for myself, and finding you guys to help me discover how to become balanced has been a huge part of my life. So when I talk about the nervous system, what do you guys feel like what you do helps support that and that healing in someone? And what are the different things that you have seen from the people that you've worked with that has been a huge change for them? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the nervous system is the CEO of our body, right? And since we are all energy, we are also we have stored energy in our nervous system, and that comes also out in our organs or the whole body, and we can get sick. So the nervous system, it's very, very important that we come into a more and more like a calm nervous system, come into our innate nature again and begin to remember that. So with the energy activation, energy change, we change from a lower vibration, a lower frequency into a higher. When we work through the nervous system also, it's we really get the benefit of a better health, and in our mental health too, our thoughts and our emotions. When we release some stagnant energy through the nervous system, we actually also touch on our emotions. Emotions is not the same as feelings. Emotions is where we could say the background of us, where we get stored energy. That is our trauma, our shock, like everything. So when we really work through the nervous system, we work and release, ease up memories that are stored in us. It comes to our awareness in our thoughts and in our intelligence. So to explain that more on a practical level, when we release some stored energy in our nervous system, we will feel more calm. Therefore, we will feel better. Calmness, inner calmness is the most powerful thing in the world. We can take more clear decision. We actually feel more clarity inside. And not only the health is crucial, because every cell of our body are so intelligent. So if it have to be activated by a higher frequency, and we could also say by even more light, actually. Because when every cell in our body is activated with even more light, we are actually feeling more light. And we can begin to feel our innate, universal intelligence. And in other words, that is where you feel like an inner beautiful energy inside. You feel more simple inside. And there is so many beautiful things that are happening through that. We can have better connection with us. our relationship begins to improve even more, because we also begin to release our stagnant energy we hold on from, for example, holding on to toxicity. And I mean, there's so much good and beauty in people. So that is what we are going to thrive with and within ourselves. So this year was I can go so far in all this. So Anna, dear Anna, when we are really changing and molding the energy through our nervous system, what is your experience?
I always say right now we've built into a society that is so distracted, and coming to a place that is just you being able to take a breath and feel your own body and just be in your own presence and be okay with that. We have to actually like build that into our routines now. And we need other things to kind of help us through that and learn how to breathe and learn how to take that space and learn how to like be comfortable in silence in a way within ourselves. And that's where I think our work comes in to play really importantly, because it's a very safe way for a person just to like be in that feeling of like, oh, okay, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not answering that email. The kids are running here. We're just running all over from appointment to appointment to appointment to this, to that. You know, we're so used to being in that busyness that coming down from that, we have to build that in. And I think that's where our modalities start to come in a little bit more, because then that plays into bigger chronic conditions, right? We're seeing a lot of really chronic things come through from a health perspective with people, and that all plays back into your nervous system and that safety and just that space. So I come back to what are two things that we always need that are very simple, and for me that is nature and that's light, which also goes into frequency and vibration, which is really simple. There's a lot of things that we can do to come to that frequency.
Oh yeah, and
right?
when you speak about the silence, it's a profound way of just have our own beingness. And what does that mean? Because it's not about sitting in a silent room. No. It's the inner silence. And through that, it's actually here where our highest creativity arises. It's our intuition. We can hear it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's also the sense of, I just have an inner knowingness. So I know there have been some study with women and how they made changes in their life. And there's a saying of this, I just knew, but you don't know quite the result. So you are allowing yourself to feel safe in the unknown when you are with an inner knowingness.
There's so much stored in our subconscious. Like, I feel like that's something that I've really started learning. This is bringing up so many thoughts for me. It's so interesting. I wrote down my notes. Just because it made me think of. Are you guys familiar with Carl Jung's work? And just you talking about that really made me think about like the collective unconscious. And I really do believe that like that is something that lives in all of us, but there's so much resistance to it, especially nowadays. Like you said, like I was just listening to another podcast episode about like the attention economy and how distracted we are. And I find too that like, so many of us, we know we're distracted. Like we're scrolling through our phones and we know we're distracted. Right. But there's almost another layer to that I feel like I realize, and I notice it more when I do take that time to be undistracted, about how, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, that distraction on top of that is also, part of that is that we're always being like sold something and like our attention has become a commodity. Yeah. So part of that is just like separating yourself from the idea of being either like a consumer or a commodity, because to me that's so like antithetical to what it is to be a human.
There's almost like a guilt that you feel 100%. In like, right? If you're not in that busyness or you're not in that like being sold, like you said, like I have to kind of be in that. We've created this like and feeling it's like of like, if I'm not in it, then I'm missing out, right? There's that too. So.
What comes to my mind when you said that was, right, we don't realize all the stored emotion or stored memories that our body holds on to. And I think there's a fear of being in silence. Because, right, that
sitting with your own thoughts.
100%, right? Because it's even the thoughts that you didn't even know that were there that come up when you're in that silence. And I'm not talking just right in a silent room, but in the silence of your head. So that's why you bring out your phone, you put on the TV. Because if we would just face that fear and sit in that silence and let go of some of that stuff that our body and our mind is holding on to, you can find that balance. It's hard every day to keep it, but I feel like the tools that I've learned through the two of you have helped me to be okay being in those moments.
Do you guys experience a lot of resistance from people who come to see you at first? I mean, I assume that anybody who's coming to see you has probably already pushed a little bit past like their inner skeptic. But, you know, like, especially someone like you guys who are very attuned to people's energies, like, I assume you can probably feel that resistance. You're both nodding, like, who wants to tackle this one?
We had an interesting conversation on just kind of resistance for me, when someone comes into a session, I only see them at their best self. So I don't get that. You feel it. But for me, working in that situation, like, I don't at the same time because it's not there. It's not there for me. It might be for them.
No, actually, I don't have that resistance or feel that, because it's as we are worked as skilled healers too, and or more an activation of that energy that are innate within you, then it's a deep listening. You're really being heard. You're being listening to beyond what you typical are listening to yourself. So also when we talk about could there be any resistance, as soon as you feel safe in a place, there's no resistance. You are just more curious, and it's like, just bring it on, please. And you, the whole thing also about silence. One thing is silence where, I can suddenly hear my own thoughts. And that's still on a surface level. That's a mental level. When we are working with energy, we are beyond the mental level. We are, you could say, we are working together with your soul. We are working as, I call it, presence. It's a way of being so much here and now, really listening. And presence is it's an intelligence of the universe. It's not a romantic thought. It's pure science by the quantum field. I love studying Nassim Haramein, who is really a scientist in that field on energy and the intelligence of energy. So therefore, to activate with higher energy, higher frequencies also, and the variation of vibration, it's not mystical at all. It's pure intelligence. So silence in itself, it can really become this beauty and sense of an inner core calmness and silence, which are prior to any thought, which can uplift our thoughts, make them more soft. So therefore, attune us to that way of sensing, that way of beingness. It's through our breath, typical. It's one of the most easiest way and the most simple because you are breathing anyway. But it has to be very aware. You have to be very aware. And everyone can do that. It's as soon as you just have the sense of it, you just know that is, oh, I like that. That's really a good feeling, right? And because it truly only does good for you. And so inner silence in the core is something that, of course, we are aware of again and again and again and again. And suddenly you see yourself have like longer and longer moments where you are capable of that. And along that way, it's really where the adventure of being human begins, I think. So I've changed my whole life.
Yeah.
So if you're skeptical, what they're saying, they don't feel it from us at all. So go for it.
Yeah. I assume a lot of people probably are like you said, taking the woo factor out of that, which has been my most, I think, what I've been most interested about Western developing this whole renew space and everything, because I feel like there's so many people who could be profoundly helped by this who will reject it just whole cloth just because it's not,
normal,
traditional, medical, like you go see a doctor. But, it's also interconnected. And at the same time, I feel like the awareness of this kind of thing is growing too in people's minds. I think people feel, even if they don't realize it on a deep level, that's something's kind of wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and that's to me, that's going back to that like collective unconscious. Like, I think we all feel it.
Yeah.
Like something's just not quite right with the way that we live now. And so I think even just the small act of triggering that self-awareness for the first time in something, I mean, that in someone, that could be, I don't know, that could be something that changes someone's whole life. And I know you guys have changed lives in Renew. I mean, there's so many people whose stories, like, who talk to Western about how, like, their whole physical health, mental health, like everything has changed just from doing the things that you've worked with them through in Renew.
Amazing. And it's about, that we get afraid, I think, sometimes, or have that fear and just that silence word. And that when people come in for a session, sometimes I'll always say, like, just because you're in we'll use the word Zen space or a quiet space, doesn't mean your thoughts have to be quiet, right? We're just getting back to like your thoughts. And when a person can go through a session, we kind of talked about this yesterday, and having that like feeling of, oh, my thoughts are really racing and I'm laying down and all of these things are all coming to the surface. And then you kind of go into this transition of like, am I sleeping? Am I not? Am I like, what is this feeling in my body, to like, oh man, there's all the thoughts coming back. So you kind of have that transition, but that's life, right? So that it's very interesting to have a person like go through that and process that and just like start to be okay with that feeling and not have that terminology of like meditation, clearing the space, clearing the thoughts. Like
there's so much attached now to those words. Even those things have been commodified. That's the other thing, it's like any kind of, that's what's hard for me in the wellness space, I think, because there's so much of it that feels so valuable and true to me. But then, of course, with anything, there's going to be people who take it, twist it, try to make it, to use it to sell it, and that's kind of it. And so it's so hard to kind of discern, I think, like, okay, what's real, what's going to actually help me? And part of that, I think, is just instinct and, finding the right people.
And there goes back to that, your own feeling. And I always say, like, if it doesn't resonate with you, it's not going to heal you. Like, it has to kind of feel good. And like, we know we have that gut intuition of like, that works for me and that doesn't. But you find there's so many modalities that are useful. And when you just go into it and you let your mind be open and just allow yourself to experience, you find your way.
I think one thing that we touched on with all of this yesterday was the heart and brain coherence and how important it is to have that balance between those two. And I think sometimes that's where the intuition thing, where people sometimes don't always trust their gut, because having that balance between those two helps you trust that feeling that you get. And you don't go, well, that's just my brain being that way, or I'm thinking with my heart. But if you can really find that silence, it helps you, correct?
Yeah.
Find that coherence between what your heart and your brain are doing. And that was something that you've studied quite a bit.
Yeah. Yes. So as I'm seeing it, it is the basic of our well-being as a calm nervous system. It is when our heart and brain can come into a harmony or coherence. And through all that, we begin to experience, because it's all a felt experience, so experience this resonance of silence. So, for example, the Heart Math Institute in California have made a device where you can measure your heart and brain coherence. And that's a very intelligent thing to even like go beyond that. But it is a foundation of us where, and it's, you can think, oh, I could never come to that. Everyone are capable of that because we have that intelligence system. So it's a, this modality in a way, it's the way I have built that into my kind of method, where it's so important that we are, when I can feel, oh, now the nervous system are begin to calm. I can see when you have a heart and brain in harmony, when there's a rhythm. And then just imagine your whole beingness just feeling so, you can feel your body, and you're also like so much more than your body. And that is how I see energy. I see colors all the time. And imagine you are coming into that kind of beingness. It's not even a state of being, it's like a beingness. And when I talk about it, you that are listening to that, you actually somehow know what I'm talking about because it's your nature. So there's a lot of science on the intelligence of our heart and brain coherence, and so it's not something we take the woohoo out of that, right? And that's therefore I have developed that system because I love the pureness of energy of intelligence, and it's not an intellectual intelligence we're talking about. It's a energy intelligence. So that means that is our heart intelligence. When we are activating more and more in our heart, we are actually aligning what we call the unified field. So that is the energy of pure intuition. That is the energy of absolutely inner silence. That is the energy of all kinds of information, synchronicities you are being aware of are coming together for making simply this podcast today here. Think about how many things that have come together just to be here now. So when you are allowing yourself being supported to come into your innate nature, and I use music for that too. Music are innate in us, so I work together and collaborate with Dr. Jussi Erikainen. He's a bestseller author of the book Changing Lives, Changing Lives, and or Transforming Lives, Transforming Lives. And we are co-creating on music where I see music, read music when I close my eyes that are relaxing, calming, disrupting the nervous system from its stored energy, and not only in the nervous system, in our whole being, and also allow you to be activated in your heart and brain harmony, and then way beyond. So
When you say stored energy, I think maybe breaking it down to something simple. When we talk about that, that could be as easy as somebody spraining their ankle and having inflammation in their body. That stored energy can be a trauma that you have, a emotion that's held up, a physical, you break your leg. Like all of these things store different energy in our bodies, and we have to find a way to release those and heal it. And I feel like, where was I going with that? I don't know.
Well, it's interesting to me, too, that you're talking about music, because a lot of what you were saying earlier very much reminds me of that flow state you get in when you're creating something. It's like you're tapping into that. And I wonder how many people experience it without even realizing it. I feel like I really believe that everybody has the deep creativity inside them. And there's so many people who are like, I'm not creative, I couldn't make things or whatever. But like, I think that's the human condition, is like we exist to make things, to create things. And I feel like tapping into that part of you, like you're talking about, to me feels like very much at least one of the sources of art. And so it makes total sense to me that music would be part of that, because that's something so deeply built into just, there's a physical part of it. It's your body feels things even before your brain creates the thoughts. And that's to me like how we create art.
And that was really how I started thinking about energy too. Because right when you're creating and somebody is like, they put out a song that you feel, that's energy. And I think sometimes we try to make it bigger than it is. But everything we do, like, that's going to put me to sleep. It's going to put me into a state of what?
yeah, the music, right? It's some of Dr. Hughes' music here that we use in the sessions. Yeah, and exactly. So, Sophie, as you said, creativity, it's one of our highest intelligent energy, of course. And everyone are creative. And they may not feel they are, but everyone are. And we can awaken that even more, because it's the state where we just get so calm. It's really when we have people maybe in the spectrum, and when they are with music, they are getting into their natural way of being, right? So, and Katie, you also talked about the stored energy. So to simplify it, it's a trauma. Trauma can come from the emotions or the trauma we have experienced or are experiencing through misuse, mental misuse. It can be through injuries, of course, in our body, or other kinds of injuries. It can be through shock. Many times we actually don't see or realize that something gave us a shock in a time of our life. Because if we are, as for example, my journey where I have been going through being mentally strong, what was a pleasing thing, then you are not seeing yourself so clearly, and you are not seeing that, for example, the shock of being so traumatized by other people's domination or manipulation or that kind of fear, because it just gets some kind of normal to you. But your body are getting a shock because something in you know this is not our natural way of being. And that's why the body can react and get sick, actually, too. One of the components. There's so many reasons why, right? So when we talk about stored energy, trauma, shock is the way of being with grief or not being with grief. It's perceived beliefs that we just get programmed with, that we are here not to put on and judge another for that, but we are here to take that as, okay, what happened was happening, so I'm now taking my responsibility. And that's why I'm enjoying so much by having the opportunity through my skills also to support people in that energy, as well as Anna is doing with her kind of activation and her style, or nutrition is helping with his or her style, and there's so much, or here exercising helping with that. There's so many kind of natural support system for us to thrive even better again. It's just such a beautiful thing to support with you coming into and have a sense of, oh my goodness, this is me. Wow.
Do you guys?
If anyone was watching, we were all like in this sedative state of like, oh.
Do either of you have any particular like stories that stick out, like people you've worked with that you know are kind of like the go-to if you think of someone like who was really, really affected by what you do?
So many.
Yeah.
You have to pick one.
Wow.
This is where we bring Tad's
or
spirit.
a couple,
or a couple.
whatever, you know. If any come to mind that, you know, if someone listening is still sort of like, whatever. Sometimes I feel like it helps to hear real people who have been affected.
So many stories, actually. So many stories. The most beautiful thing is to see the shift in people's eyes. So I actually, to not only be a giver of something, for me it's extremely important that I am integrating everything I speak about, everything I share, because that is the authentic, most powerful sharing. So I actually can tell you a little about my own story. I am a very active person in every way, and I love that. I come to really love that. So I have been like through a lot of mental trauma, especially personality traits that were more manipulating. And I come into life and learn to please more. And so many people I know, so many people can relate to that. So I was working, I love to work, but I was working really so hard. So I went way over my own healthy boundaries, my own healthy thing. So I got cancer. I injured my spine, crossed some of the femur of my hip and the hip in an accident. I crashed my head in a car accident. I went through several surgeries. I couldn't walk other than a few meters, and I couldn't because of some discus prolapse in the neck and in the bottom of the spine. So that ended up with that I had to close down my most beloved work, my clinic. So I went through a time and with really working myself up again. And I did. So what I actually did was, because my spine was so traumatized, felt like 100 kilo, it's like 50 pounds on, or 200 pounds actually, on the pressure in the spine and the neck all the time. I could only find like a little release by different kind of treatments I went to. So I went into giving myself the treatment I give others for many years. I have over 40,000 sessions through my life here. So I went really into silence and with energy, like seeing through the spine in myself, and could have a sense of energy arising And I knew, of course, that are healing, that are stabilizing again. So I did that over and over again on my, when I had to be at home because of surgery runs and so on. And I became more and more aware of the present now moment. And the presence is where all healing occurs. So that, to make it short, that energy awareness became my whole healing. And it also made me mental with all my activity, being so aware of that I love to be active. And I also really love to be still. So that was some of my own story. I'm fully, as I know of, totally fresh today. I cannot do the same kind of exercise that I used to, but I can do a lot. So I'm very happy. And I can walk and I can run again.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anna?
I think I always have to go back to my dad and where that root started for me. And it's interesting to see where that has blended into today. So my dad became really ill from a virus called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which paralyzed him from head to toe. So we spent a lot of time in the ICU. And from that, I met one of his nurses, his ICU nurses, who was also a Reiki master and also a nun at the time, which just interestingly,
It's really
how
interesting.
that all blended together. But she was probably that catalyst in showing me how that whole like kind of dream team comes together. And when you need that, but I became really, really hyper aware. So my dad wasn't able to communicate, but that was my first sense of energy and that knowing in that safe space of I could walk into his room and I would know when he was having a tougher day. He couldn't communicate that. I mean, he was completely paralyzed. But then you started to feel like even in different areas where I could tell like he had different pain on different areas, and that just kind of built, and you spend so much time in that observation and that awareness, and without communication, without that knowing, you have that energy sense of you walk into a room and you feel something, right? So that has kind of gone into my work, and always like trusting that medical side of it as well. You know, it's not just about that holistic side, and that's where I love what we're doing with Western, because it's so supportive and it's really taking all of us together and knowing that you have your supportive doctor, you have your nutrition, you have that movement, but then you also have that space to come back and just be. You don't have to do, you just get to be, and that's in a session, you know, like with Mette or with myself. I always come back to that, and if there's anything that I can do, and I think that I have carried through in that chronic support, in that knowing like what that feels like to be in that, but then not just from the patient side of it, but the family and the caretaking and what that goes into, right? You have someone or you have a family member that you are taking care of, and how that really starts to impact the person and the family member. Or like myself, when that happened, I was so little, like 5 years old, but how that impacted me for the rest of my life. So how can I kind of bring that through for everyone that I see?
And as a child, you probably experienced it even more deeply, I feel like, because kids are so much more open to receiving and
Right.
giving of their energy.
Right. You're in it all, and parts of it where you don't understand, but yet you do, right?
Yep.
And that's where kids kind of have that massive understanding, and they don't have that wall up, and they don't have that block a lot of the times, but supportive.
Well, I'm kind of like a personal testimony to both of you, and I can say what brought me going through MS and having past traumas from childhood and as an adult. I experienced a lot of dizziness and felt like I was on a boat most of the time. And I was looking for something, because I was going through treatment, which was helping. But I think this was like a space where I was like, I just need something to help me ground.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing for me, was finding this healing to help me find balance in all the craziness of what I was going through with whatever symptoms I was having from MS, whatever symptoms come up from traumas, whatever symptoms come up from working and having kids. And I can go into this space and just be. And that's been the biggest thing for me as a testimony to both of you and Western and everything that I have here. And I know when I'm having a bad day, I know what to go to help me get through it in a positive way.
Yeah.
So that's been amazing for me.
Maybe that's a good transition to, I feel like it would be good to touch on maybe some of the like actual like nitty gritty. Like if people are listening to this, I wonder if there's anyone who's like, okay, but what do you guys actually do? You know, if you both want to maybe actually talk about like what a session is like, maybe what the actual method entails.
Wow.
Even on a surface level, I'm sure like we could do like a whole other like 2 hours or whatever talking about this, but to give people a little preview.
Very shortly, it's I can talk about the way I am activating your own healing capacity. So that is, I work a lot with people over Zoom around the world, and it's a way of having you being with me and laying down with some good earbuds on, and then I share this intelligence of music, so you can have that, and then I'm simply closing my eyes, and I have developed a kind of like X-ray sight, so I go see you through the whole sacrum, your lower back, through your nervous system, and simply both in energy and in the nervous system, I actually sit with my hands and feel you, support you, release tension, release stored energy as I see as shattered energy, and it becomes brighter and brighter in colors. So we are activating your own healing capacity. So it's a system of going through your whole sacrum, your whole spine, and your neck, and bringing you into a heart and brain coherence. And in all this, it's always unknown what is going to be seen. The stored energy that are for right now here to be seen are being shown. So I see it as a story or as an energy of your patterns. And in that moment, when it shows up, it's already are easing up in you. And I support you being aware of that because it's yours. And that is, so we are working with the consciousness of your own field. So in short term, it's a beautiful session that are very deep, and you are going to feel very, very safe, right? You're going to feel very safe. It's beautiful, and for the most, you are being left with such a calm state of being, so you can have like a kind of reset. It is a must experience yourself. Yeah,
It's so hard to explain.
You
feel
that makes sense.
absolutely light after, but during you feel like you are 1,000 pounds laid on the softest bed ever. It's amazing. That's what that one feels like. And Anna's is pretty close. It's like being asleep but not asleep.
Yeah.
Your body just goes.
Yeah, we journey through. I always say the person that comes in, like their only job with me is to be comfortable. That's all they have to. That's all they have to worry about when they come in. I do work hands-on, and I explain it sometimes in a way. So we just think about there's that energy and there's that movement, and kind of going back to that awareness with me of I can feel those areas in the body that need movement. So if we explain it kind of in terms of, you can feel the pulse on your wrist, you can feel the pulse in your neck. We have those pulses that move throughout our entire body. But it's interesting, you feel a pulse in someone's stomach and it could be really, really, really fast, where the pulse in their wrist is really slow. So my job is to kind of move through that body and allow those to all come together in more of a balanced feel. And that's when you start kind of layering in some emotions along with those different areas within the body. But I get to move through the whole body in that session and allow that to kind of come through, and those pulses to just come to a place where, like, ooh, we're all working together in a way. And then at the end, I always have a moment where I just leave the room and I meditate on kind of what just happened within that session. And that's where I start to bring in that probably Eastern medicine side, where we start to talk about chakras and things like that and those pulse points. And we start to have that conversation together with the client of mine of how that connects and how they're feeling, and then kind of what can they do now when they leave my room. How do we learn how to breathe? How do we learn, different things that we can do to release and keep some of that energy moving and flowing. But every session is so different and everyone is so different. And that's probably one of the best things about it, is because every single day I'm surprised. Like, there's never the same moment, because we all have different experiences. But with that session, I always say it's better experienced than explained.
Yeah. Is it exhausting for you guys? I mean, it feels like it must take a lot from you, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Can you speak on that a little bit?
It does and it doesn't. It does in a sense that you're human. And no matter what, right, you have life, and you have outside of that session room, you still have life and you still have things going on. So you do have to be in that boundary of health and knowing when you are kind of overworking things. But like in an actual session, I never come out of that feeling like, whew, that was just exhausting, or different things. I think it's just that normal everyday feeling of, you're still going to work. You're still it's still, that job in a sense. It's still time. It's still energy. But in the bigger picture of it, I don't come out of it feeling like, oh my gosh.
Sure.
That was a lot.
So actually, in my past, I was exhausted of it. And I'm not anymore. I'm very energized. Because there's a skill here. There's absolutely a learning of being in presence yourself. So that is your way of being. And the beauty of that is that we know by science that when we are together, we begin to come in a rhythm together. Our brain waves begins to catch up, coming in alignment. So that's why it's such an enjoyment for me to nurture, work on me and my state of the beingness, because that is absolutely the beauty of influencing in the good way. So today I'm never exhausted or anything about it. I'm energized. Mm-hmm. I love that. And as Diana said, we are human. So it's a lot of energy through the whole system. So it's not just being there and hallelujah. It's really a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. So you could see it if we put it only in the body-wise. It's like running a marathon every time. And you are nurturing, I'm nurturing myself in that to have the capacity to actually hold space for you.
So it feels almost collaborative, I guess. Would that be a good word to describe it?
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which, not to show like my nerdy side, but that reminds me of, well, I personally love collaboration. I know not everybody does, but
I do
in
too.
terms of like art making and stuff like that, I find that kind of stuff is really fulfilling, and it reminds me of playing Dungeons and Dragons because it's one of my favorite things doing those kind of games, because at the end of a session you come out having created something totally unique and special with other people, and to me that I guess I see like a parallel there for all the nerdy people who want a different analog for what this might be like.
Really good.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
like
good
that
one,
too.
actually.
Collaborative storytelling.
It is.
I really want to emphasize we are collaborating, not on the mental level, because that's not where we are have that growing and evolving. We are collaborating on your soul level, on your energy level, right on the infinite energy.
It's like a deeper connection to each other.
Yeah, our natural state of being.
Yeah.
Man, this was amazing.
Oh.
Like literally could probably go on for like 6 more hours.
We are at an hour, so did you have any final questions? I feel like if we want to end, maybe is there any sort of actionable, message we can send people off with? How can, obviously, like people can come to Western and, you get a free consultation with Anna, and she can talk to you about all of the different modalities and stuff that is.
And we'll definitely put that in the
Yeah,
notes
we'll put
of
all
the
of this,
podcast, and we'll put Mette's website on there too.
Yeah.
And you mentioned some good books yesterday, and we don't have to get into those, but we'll put those in.
If you just send me a list, I'll put
too.
them in the show notes for other resources people can start exploring.
And I feel like if anyone ever has questions, right, we're always open to talk at Western.
We're here.
Oh
after
yeah,
you
if
listen
you're
to this
if
and-
you're a Western member or someone in the community, Anna does monthly we call it coffee with Anna sessions. We'll put that in the notes too, but you can also find it on Western's website, and that's just basically a comfortable forum that you can just come ask
Come
questions.
as you are, and super informal, but just a space to, if you're curious and you have a question, or if you want to bring a friend, you don't have to be a member at Western, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah, do you guys want to kind of send things off with anything you want people to know, or anything you want to say to people to start them on whatever this journey is, if they're interested?
Oh yeah, I want to give a simple and very, very effective way of being here now, because that's the only thing we have actually. So the simple thing is that you can, just before you wake up in the morning, place your hand over your upper heart. In the upper heart we have over 40,000 neurons, and that is activating our heart intelligence. And then you just close your eyes and you take a soft, deep breath in. You release your jaws and you release your tongue from your upper mouth. And then you breathe in through your nose and just be here and now, and know you are activating your heart's intelligence. Then you can start your day. You may feel a wave of energy, and that is real, the beauty of the now. And you can do that any time, any moment. And the more you do it, the more you get skilled.
Or just play that piece of the podcast every morning, because it literally puts you
And
into
let to walk you through it.
Yeah.
Anna, how about
meta
you?
space. Well, we can use that same technique, and this is something that I teach often in breath work, in that power that your body knows what needs to move. So say you are in that feeling and you take an exhale. Your brain has a place in your body that it lingers. So say you take that exhale and all of a sudden in your brain, your back pops into your mind. I say on your next inhale, breathe with that. Breathe with your back. Breathe with that area. Your body knows what needs to move, and your breath can move a lot of that. So in that same instance, and when you're going through that, placing the hand on the heart, taking that exhale, seeing where your brain goes, seeing where that lingers, and this having that thought of like, okay, I'm breathing with that area now. And that will allow some movement, and that will allow some energy to start to come through, and you'll be amazed at like how that sequence starts to kind of pair together, and it just becomes a little bit more balanced feel.
Do you want to send us off with our totally awesome book of useless information?
We can't end it without doing one of these.
This is how we end every episode. So let's get some useless information. I love it.
I feel like this one fits. Elephants only get about 2 hours of sleep a day.
What?
I
Really?
know. They need to start meditating.
That's crazy. I would have never thought that.
I know.
It's for such a large creature, too.
Right? I also want, do they sleep standing up or down?
I think down.
Are they like cows?
Yeah.
They lay down?
Yeah, I think
That's
they
a
lay
lot.
down.
You know why? That's a lot of work for an elephant to get up and down. I can see why they only do it 2 hours a day.
Oh, funny.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So excited to put this one out. And
Yeah.
till the next time, we're out.
Till we meet again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.